A good night of Shabbos, everyone. I want to tell you over an amazing idea that I heard from a giant in Torah, but I don't want to tell you who it is yet. At the end, I'll let you know when this was said and who said it. Pasuk says, "Vayidaber Shem Moshe v'Yalaron Lemor," chapter 14, verse 33. God spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, "Ki savo el eretz Canaan, when you come into the land of Canaan, asher noisen lochem la'achuza, that I give you as an inheritance, as a portion, nasati neged saras bebeis eretz achuzaschem." That I'm going to put a neged saras, I'm going to put a blight of leprosy, of leprous growth in the house of the eretz achuzaschem, of the land of your inheritance. Ubasha loya bayis, and the person who owns the house is going to come, v'higid lakayin lemor, and he's going to come to the kayin, he's going to say to him, kin nega nirali babayis. It appears that there is a nega, kin nega, not nega, but kin nega, that it appears that there is a nega in the house. And then the kohen is going to say, you have to take out the stuff from the house. He's going to wait for 7 days, then decide as whether the house is in fact has a nega, then knock down part of the house. It's a whole process that's going to have to take place. Rashi says, Rashi says, that this was really telling them about giving them a message, telling them about something in the future, that Hanagoyim Boyim Aleim, that he was letting them know that Nagoyim was coming to them, and the reason why all of these terrible things, this Nagoyim in the house, why things growing on the walls in the house were going to happen. Lefishit Minu Amarim Matimonios, because they hid these beautiful treasures of gold in the Kiros Bateim, in the houses of their walls, the people that lived in the land of Israel before the Jews got to the land of Israel. They hid treasures inside of their homes. The 40 years that the Jews were traveling in the desert, they were hiding stuff in the walls of their home. And because of this nega, because of what appeared to be such a terrible nega, such a terrible blight, the thing that is matama the house, it makes the house tummy, it makes the house impure, it causes all kinds of problems. In the end, when they knock down the walls, they're going to find these matmonim. They're going to find all of these incredible treasures inside of the home. So this Rav asked the question, and he said, wait a second. If when they saw the nega, so they knew that God was sending them a message, that behind this nega, behind this blight, behind this growth that's going on in your walls, there's going to be these matmonim, these treasures that are hidden there. And that these treasures were the way that God was using them, the previous generation that lived in the land of Israel, using them as your shlichim, as your emissaries, to give you these gifts. Then why did you have to wait for 7 days? As soon as you saw that there was something growing on the walls, why didn't we just say, oh, I know what's there. There's matmonim there. Givaldik. There's beautiful treasures that are hidden there. I got nothing to worry about. And go and find the treasures. Go look for them. Knock down the walls and look for the treasures. You know that they're there. Why did you have to go through this whole process of 7 days and then deciding whether it's going to be okay, whether it's not going to be okay? What was the point of the quarantine? What was the point of the 7 days? And why say kanega, that it appears that there is a growth on the wall? What do you mean it appears there's a growth on the wall? There's a growth on the wall. It wasn't like you'd have to scratch your head. Even if you weren't an expert in growths, you knew that there was a growth on the wall, and you knew what was behind it. You knew there were matmonim there. You knew there were these beautiful treasures there. So go get the treasures. So this Rav said that everybody knows that everything that happens is for our best. We learn this throughout our long, long, painful history. Called Ovid Rahman Latava Ovid, that everything that God does is Latava Ovid, is for our good. And for our good doesn't mean for our pleasure. For our good doesn't mean that it's something that is good, but it means for our good, that it means that it is something that brings us and moves us forward. And even difficult, painful times are things that are Latav Ovid. They're being done for our good. When we have to discipline a child, it's being done for the child's good. When sometimes things don't work out the way we want them to work out, in the end, it was for our good. If that would have happened, can you imagine what my life would have been like? Even though at that moment, what that was a terrible tragedy. Says the Rav, and I want to read you his words, his amazing words. That afilu kishechas v'shalom l'aka isanu, even when God smacks us, hakol l'tayvahi, it's all ultimately for our good. Aval kisharoim ka'et, but when we look now, shel lo b'yisurei haguf levad melaka isanu, that God's not just hitting us in the physical sense. It's not just doing something to our bodies. Rak gam b'dvarim shechas v'sholom marchikim mehem otanu mimenu yizbarach, but things that are happening to us that are distancing us from God. Ein cheder l'tashbar, there's no cheder, there's no school for the tinai shel beis rabban, for the beautiful children who the sound of the Torah of the children is what saves the entire world. Below yeshiva, there's no yeshiva, there's no public study of Torah. Below Beis HaMedrash lispal, there's no Beis HaMedrash to sit in and to daven b'tzibur. Below mikvah, and mikvah's being challenged. Ukedaima and similar things. Chas v'shalom safik chashash olam b'kirbenu. Maybe when we suffer all of this, when all of this starts to happen to us, and it's not just that our physical existence is challenged, but our spiritual existence becomes challenged. And it seems like we're being distanced from God. Maybe a suffix, maybe a doubt rises inside of us and says, is it possible that even under these conditions, God is really doing something for our good? Maybe we've hit the point that this is no longer for our good. Is it possible still for good? If it was for our good, then he should have done things, one would have imagined that he would have done things that would have brought us closer to him in the end. Lo bittul Torah, not things that are nullifying the study of Torah, utfila, v'chas v'sholom kimat kol Torah, things that are nullifying the existence of the entire Torah. Maybe these aren't for our good. Maybe these are Yisurim of Yashlichem. These are Yisurim of God sending us away. These are sufferings of a nation that's being rejected by their God. Says the Rav, no. Then in Parshas Metzorah, in this event of finding growth on our homes, going into quarantine for 7 days, and then finding treasures at the end, was God's way of telling us that this is life. That yes, the nega is terrible. He wants us to experience the tumah, the impurity. He wants us to experience the difficulty. It's tameh, it's mitame, it makes one impure, it impurifies. It has terrible effects and terrible ramifications. But in the end, after the experience, you'll recognize the matmonim. You'll recognize the treasure. If nothing else, you'll recognize your own personal growth. You'll recognize that you became a bigger person. You'll recognize the strength, the internal strength that you had or didn't have, but need to work on. But that now you know it's possible. You could have. And now you light that fire inside and start to build yourself. As it says by Egypt, that we suffered in Egypt. But vayetzu b'rechush gadol, we left with tremendous wealth. And it wasn't the money that we left with. Vayetzu b'rechush gadol, we left with an incredible spiritual wealth, with matmoinim, with treasures. Because we understood ourselves, we understood who we are, we understood what we have a potential to do. And in the end, we'll realize that it's ultimately for our good. And that's why we turn to the Kohen and we say, Kanega nira li babayis. It appears like it's an ego. This appears bad. It doesn't feel great. But I know that it's only ka nega. I know that it's only something that appears like a nega, but it's not necessarily a nega. But it feels like one. It feels like a blight. It feels like a patch. It feels bad. But ka nega nearly. But it's only a ka. It's only like a nega. Because in the end, I know that there's going to be matmainim, there's going to be treasures. In the end, I'm going to understand the role that it played in my life. And that's why we had to go through the experience of 7 days. That's why we had to go through the experience of not just deciding, oh, there's matmonim there, let's go get them. Because then we never would have learned the lesson. No, go through the pain, go through the difficulty, go through the tumah, go through the impurity. Knock down the walls. And then in the end, you'll understand the matmonim. You'll understand that this was necessary. Not sweet, not pleasant, but part of a divine plan. What a beautiful message. One has to imagine that it's a message that was written by somebody going through Corona, watching what's happening in the Jewish world, giving encouragement to his brethren in the Jewish world. These words were written by the Piazetzna, by the Eish Kodesh. They were written in Warsaw by Clonimus Kalman Shapira, who wrote them in 1940 on Parshas Tazria Metzorah, the beginning of April, as the Jews were witnessing and dealing with the reality of the walls of the Warsaw Ghetto, of the quarantine and the sequestering and the putting the Jews inside. And this is what was going through the mind of Reb Clonimus Kalman Shapira. This is what was going through the mind of the Piazetzna. And that message of the Piazetzna was a message for the Holocaust. It was a message for Negif Corona. It's a message to the Jewish people for every single day of life. That though it appears kanega near ali babayis, it appears bad. Besurahi. No, in the end, there are matmainim, there are spiritual treasures. There are things that we can learn about how to be servants of God, how to be beautiful Jews and beautiful human beings without all the things going on around us, without community, without the energy of everybody else pushing us along, but of finding that strength and power inside of us alone, on our own. We can learn how to daven, we can learn how to learn, we can learn how to be kind. We're not just part of the energy when it's coming, has to be generated from deep inside of us. Those are matimonim. Those are treasures. Treasures born out of impurity, out of tumah, out of nega, out of disease, out of blight. But they're matmonim. Here in Eretz Yisrael, it's already starting next week. They're loosening it more. The era of the ability to learn these lessons and messages is coming to an end. We'll still have to walk around with masks. Not everything is going to be open. There's still going to be, but it's moving into another stage. But we still have time to cull the treasures, to find that internal strength, to learn about self-motivation and to learn about who I really am and who I really want to be. And it's my bracha to us that no matter how much suffering we see and feel around us, I have unfortunately many personal friends who have lost parents, siblings, relatives. There are many great Rabbanim in our world who have lost their lives to Corona. The pain, the suffering around is real. But in that, for each one of us, and for each one of them, when you speak to them, I spoke to a friend of mine whose mother was an incredible person. She died of Corona, was buried last week. Only a minion was able to be there. But she had every one of her grandchildren that were able to participate in the burial. There wasn't crowds, there was just the children and grandchildren. And what he was taking from it, what he was learning from that experience was something incredible. It's matmainim. Having to spend all these weeks davening alone. Having to spend all these weeks generating our own fire inside. It's been invigorating, exhilarating. In a terrible situation, against a terrible backdrop. But vayetzu b'rechush gadol. When we walk out of this, we have the opportunity to walk out with great wealth, great internal spiritual wealth, that we could be different people on the other side of this. We could be more sensitive. We could be more on fire. We could be more in tune with ourselves and with others. Let's open our eyes in these last moments and find those matmainim. Find those treasures that God has had hidden for us. I wish you all a very, very beautiful, very wonderful Shabbos. If you listen to this on Friday, I just want to share one halacha that because of Rosh Chodesh coming on a Friday and Shabbos tomorrow, so one is allowed to shave today on Friday, to shave and take a haircut. I don't know where you're going to find the haircut, but here the barbers aren't open yet. But one would be allowed to shave and take a haircut, even if one is holding Sfira, as it started Sfira on the second day of Pesach, started the symbols of mourning from the second day of Pesach until Lag BaOmer. Nevertheless, in a year like this, on Rosh Chodesh, you would be allowed to shave. Under normal circumstances, you would not be. But in a year like this, where it's Rosh Chodesh and Shabbos together, so then one would be allowed to shave. Wish you all an incredibly beautiful, powerful Shabbos, another Shabbos of matmainim, that we find amazing treasures. Can't wait to see you all. And it's with great blessing that I say have a beautiful Shabbos.